on Across an Arrow, Chapter 8, Over the Hills.
Well, tarnation! Not only were Pinkie not there, they all had to see me in this frou-frou thing.
Besides the removal of her hat once again, it was the only thing that they had added to her appearance. The dress was the same one that Rarity had begun to distract all the ponies as they waited. She had originally meant to have Fluttershy keep it, but, as every pony agreed, this was an emergency.
It's better on her than it does on me anyways, on any day of the week.
She looked down at the dappled yellow thing. It had a white frilly border to its hem that made her think of pampered field fillies from the south. Belles who did nothing but roam the hills behind their houses and occasionally broke out into song.
Not feeling the part, especially not the singing.
But she hadn't protested at the moment. It had simply gone on over her head, pulled and tugged for a second, and then she had been out the exit like a shot, galloping at full speed towards Ponyville.
Not a moment too soon.
She was chagrined to find that the twin bubbles of impending party disaster had already left Sugar Cube Corner before she had gotten there. But as long as she didn't have any more interruptions, she would be able to catch up to her friend, before the both of them blew every pony out of the water. At least the lead she'd been given was easy. There was only one party supplier in Ponyville, and that was the Jester's Joke Shop. She had made a beeline for the establishment as soon as she had left the bakery. As Applejack got closer, she began to notice that ponies were staring. Not directly at her, to her relief, but off into the distance, down the street she was running through. Out of curiosity, she skidded to a stop next to a pair of young, gangly fillies who were also looking off in the same direction.
What's all the commotion? Something coming this way?
Not one something, two somethings.
Yeah, there were two berry bubbles just now, and I heard them talking about a party.
The filly bunched her hooves together, as if she were about to explode into song.
Whenever there's a berry bubble bash, every pony has fun. But if there's gonna be two of them, it's gonna be awesome.
The farmer found herself doing a double take as she recognized the cutie marks on the pony she was conversing with. Proceeding to shake her head, she simply replied,
Thanks, y'all. I were just curious.
They didn't even register her leaving, the cloud of dust she kicked up settling over their bodies like so much unused furniture. As she turned down the street shop she was on, she encountered a mare escaping from the opposite direction.
They can take everything! Just don't let them get near me!
Applejack had to blink a few times at the strange pony. She'd never met her before, either here or in her own world, but that apron she had been wearing had seemed important. Turning her head back to the shop, she then understood why. Just now, leaving the Jester's Joke Shop were a pair of bubblegum bronies, saddlebags packed to bursting with various items of one sort or another. Hanging on the store's door was a sign that read, Out of stock. That fleeting filly had been the store owner, scared of the fact that the number of most loyal customers had suddenly doubled, and that by working together, they had completely cleaned out her shop of each and every party and prank implement left in Ponyville. Barry still took the lead. Pinkie apparently was more than willing to follow him about wherever he went. They turned back down the street towards Sugar Cube Corner, heedless of the dozens of staring ponies. They still wore those overly happy smiles and content faces that they'd been wearing when he'd first left the hedge with her in tow. Acting like nothing was wrong with the world. That really got the orange equine's dander up. With a snort, the farmer galloped straight towards the pair, fully intending on tackling her pink pony friend and whisking her out of Ponyville. At least, that had been the plan. She thought it was a good plan, simple and straightforward. It didn't account for the twins suddenly looking off to the side and abruptly changing their course as they chanted in stereo,
Ooh, slushies!
Ow, pony feathers.
The Applebucker groaned as she landed in the dirt.
Rarity's gonna have a fit about this dress.
She raised her head and tried to focus her spinning green eyes on what the two were doing. For a split second, she saw 4 blurs of pink, which was too terrifying to even contemplate. Focusing harder, she saw that they had actually stopped moving, sitting on their haunches in front of a frozen treat stand, the stallion manning the place looking from one pony to the other, fear evident on his face.
I'll have an extra large cotton candy swirl with some cherry cola!
Make it double for me! Double the pleasure!
The pink mare's eyes lit up.
Double the fun!
They then pressed their heads together and sang out the rest of the jingle in harmony, looking at each other mischievously.
That's the stateness of the greatness of Bubble Mare Gum!
The two then proceeded to giggle madly, giving every pony who was watching the scene an extra case of the uneasy shivers. or at least the chance that Applejack needed to calmly get to her hooves and walk over to the party ponies, seating herself right next to the female one.
Pinkie Pie, what in all of bloomin' apple trees in Equestria are you doing?
Oh, I'm gonna have a super duper special party with my new friend Berry Bubble. Wanna come and help?
That was the reply she got before that frizzy mane turned, blue eyes seeing her friend for real.
Oh, heya, Applejack!
Hey, Sugar Cube.
Oh, hey, Applejack.
Hey, haystack.
The farm filly's eyes shot open, her mane standing on end as she recognized that drawl. Slowly, she tilted her head to the right, peering past Pinkie, and seeing her male reflection doing much the same over Barry's shoulder.
Oh, why, howdy there, Cousin JJ. Fancy meeting you here. I was hearing a bunch of commotion all the way from the market and had to see what was going on.
His green eyes then fixed themselves back on his colt friend, before switching to gaze at the femme party pony, and then back and forth.
But land sakes, I sure wasn't expecting anything like this.
You're telling me? I'm awful sorry about this. I had no idea that there'd be any pony like my friend Pinkie Pie here. Otherwise, I would have never brought her to Ponyville in the first place.
But JJ!
Pinkie Pie gushed loudly. One could practically hear the quotation marks.
I thought that we arrived here knowing that there were gonna be other ponies like...
She was silenced by an apple. One good thing about the dress, AJ reflected, was that it possessed pockets for extra emergency apples. The draft horse had to blink a few times at the scene. Why did that seem so familiar?
So, Barry, what were y'all planning on doing with your filly friend?
The pink colt stood on his hind hooves. No pony knew where he had suddenly obtained a skillet and a white chef's uniform, complete with apron.
She's kinda new in town, you see. Me and me friend Pinkie here, we're gonna shake things up around here in Ponyville tonight.
He drawled in a depressingly hokey Emerald Lagasse accent.
Tell me, Applejack, are you ready to buck it up a notch?
Barry tossed a clove of garlic into the pan, which exploded with a BAM! Applejack was not ready, as evidenced when he stuffed an apple of his own into the pink equine's mouth. His femme doppelganger couldn't help but chuckle at the sight. His ears pricked at the sound, and he looked back at Pinkie Pie, who had begun chewing through her red fruit gag. He snickered before joining in on the chuckling.
Oh, land sakes, them party ponies! Can't live with them.
Can't live without 'em.
He finished before looking back at the female farmer herself. His eyes widened.
That's a new outfit on you, cousin. Looks like something a friend of mine would have made.
Oh.
AJ found herself blushing and looking down, having forgotten that she was still trussed up like a school filly on a first date.
Thank you kindly. I'm doing it for my friend. It ain't really my style, you know. Now that I look at it, I kinda...
Personally, I think it looks pretty nice on you.
She had cause to blink.
Did I just go and tell myself I look pretty?
Cousin JJ?
Now the orange workhorse faltered, the yoke around his neck seemingly weighing him down.
Since you're here, I figure now's as good a time as any to, well...
He gave a sigh as he tilted his head down, trying to corral his words. It was here that the farm filly began to blush something fierce, the hole in her stomach yawning open ferociously.
I hope he ain't about to say what I think he's about to say. I don't even feel that way about him.
I wanted to apologize for the other day. I had no right to out and go be nasty and suspicious about you. When y'all up and up disappeared that time in the market, Applebuck was as sore towards me as a Pegasus who forgot to flap.
His blonde mane ruffled as he shook his head side to side.
After thinking about it, I realized he was right. I'm not quite sure what came over me that day. It was improper of me, and my grandpappy always told me to treat a lady with proper respect. So it's with that respect that I say, I'm sorry. Can we try again, cousin?
Applejack blinked, her eyes wide. On the one hoof, she had been relieved to discover that it was not in fact a declaration of affection as she had feared. On the other, she was rather confused about what she was feeling. The earlier pit in her stomach was no longer present. What she was feeling right now, she hadn't the words for. It was different. A warmth. Like she'd just had a piping hot cupcake straight from the pan, or a slice of familiar comforting apple pie. It was family, she realized, now recognizing the tug she'd felt whenever Applebuck had been around her. Somewhere along the line, she really had started thinking of her other self as a cousin, she realized, if not something closer. And his apology just now, it felt as if a great big blanket had been dropped over her body, soothing and warming. She had been accepted.
Sure we can, cousin.
She finally replied at length, with a genuine smile crossing her face.
We apples gotta stick together after all. Apology accepted, Cousin Applejack.
The stallion smiled in return, a look of relief evident on his face.
Glad to hear that, Cousin JJ.
Aww!
A cheerful voice sounding from the side. It was interrupted by the sound of straw slurping before it continued.
Aren't they just so cute when they make up?
They are! Hey, Applejack, you and Cousin JJ want to help us with our party tonight? You can supply the apples for bobbing for apples!
This was also punctuated by another slurp. AJ was quickly reminded of her mission, as she saw Pinkie Pie and Berry Bubble sitting together off to the side, watching the two orange horses intently, their slushies now in hoof.
Oh, that reminds me. Pinkie, we need to talk, you and I. Let's go off someplace away from here before something else happens.
The insinuation appeared to fly right over her friend's head.
But JJ, Barry and me need to get back to Sugar Cube Corner. How else are we going to throw our super duper special hybrid berry-ific Pinkie-licious berry Pinkie Bubble Pie Bash party without the Pinkie Pie party portion involved?
I was kind of hoping you wouldn't actually, Sugar Cube.
The farmer got her face right up into the pink pony's own.
Pinkie, I just don't think Ponyville's ready for two of ya. I mean, your bro is a hoot and holler go-to, and I bet his are too. But with two of you working together, y'all might wind up making a party that no pony can handle.
Aw, JJ has a point.
Barry chimed in. The way he had said her alias made her wonder.
What if we do overdo it? Maybe no one pony should have all that party.
Now, Haystack. You know we're not doing anything at the farm this evening. You and your friend could work on a party there together, and we'd just invite the guys. Just a friendly little shindig. How's that sound, cousin?
Darn my tendency to want to offer my support. Ew, well, while that sounds mighty kind of you, cousin, me and Pinkie really have to head out of town today.
No, we don't.
Sure, Hugh, please zip it.
Applejack brought up a hoof to interrupt. She then turned back to her double.
Asides, you sure you got everything done? Got the pings all slapped?
Applebuck got to them this morning.
Green eyes were narrowed.
Got the trees fertilized?
Red Gala took care of that earlier.
Desperate, Applejack racked her mind for another chore, any chore that might not have been done yet. Then one hit her.
About your four-leaf clover seeds. Y'all need those germinating in time for the derby.
Oh, sure. That's a right piece of pie right there. We only ever grow 3 at a time, just for the...
He paused. His hat suddenly tilted to the side as his eyes widened.
Wait. Hang on just one cotton picket minute. Only me, Red Gala, and the mayor know about us supplying the clovers for the clover derby. How did you know, Cousin JJ?
Her ears drooped in hopelessness as she realized that the very same fact was also true in her world. For a depressingly long time, the Clover Derby had been a dismal failure, year after year, until the mayor had approached the Apple family with an offer to help increase the odds of finding a four-leaf clover. She had given them leeway on their farm taxes, in return for a small number of the rare plants to be grown every year for the Derby. They had accepted, but had kept it hush-hush. Not that AJ had minded giving competitors a fair chance at getting one of the plants, but still, apples growing clovers? She didn't really want that getting around, and apparently neither had her double, as he drilled a look of pure shock and curiosity in her direction.
It's a mystery!
Pinkie bounced up between the two orange ones, Barry in step behind her.
And one that you're going to have to wait for!
The farming colt gave Pinkie a look that said she just claimed she was a moon pony.
Really? How do y'all figure that?
Because my hooves are itchy!
She shuffled her feet in the dirt. Instantly, Applejack's ears perked as she began scanning the ponies on the street.
And that means you're gonna have to chase us!
Pinkie, he don't know anything about your sense. Why can't you keep your pie hole shut and let it all?
Dusk shined suddenly rounded about from behind the building's corner, spines perched on his back. His expression had been calm and content, at least up to when he spied the open-doored state of the joke shop, his purple eyes cast about the crowd, and instantly zoned in on her own green ones. There were 4 ponies in front of that slushy stand. 2 orange, 2 pink, all earth ponies. 1 filly and 1 colt per color. The mane styles and eyes, and cutie marks, all matched each other. And the orange mare had spotted him.
Sorry, sugar cubes.
Applejack's teeth latched around the pink filly's frizzy tail.
Need to move out.
The party pony called out, cheerfully waving as she was hauled away tail first at breakneck speed.
See you! We should do this again soon!
Bye, Pinkie. We should. I'll be waiting.
Applejack watched the rapidly retreating pair with disbelieving eyes, before he started looking about to see what had set them off. Upon sighting his unicorn friend's own wide-eyed, gaping expression, he called out,
Dusk, what in tarnation's...
Applejack! After them!
He didn't need to be told twice. His hooves thundered as he took off, hot on their trail, Dusk following him from behind, a startled dragoness holding on for dear life. Trailing in the rear of the pack, a perky pink colt bounced along at his own pace, happily humming a tune to himself.
Consarn, this dress, 'twere never made with running in mind.
When Pinkie had mentioned itchy hooves, she had hoped against all hope that it wouldn't mean copious amounts of running for the 2 of them, as it had in the past. But alas, that was not meant to be. Once again, the Pinkie sense had proved itself infallible, unfortunately. She had managed to make to the outskirts of Ponyville, her friend's body flailing in the air as she continued hauling her by the tail, the filly's body surprisingly light. So far, they were making good time with her head start. She had hoped it would be enough. However, that hope didn't hold out long as she heard the heavy hoofsteps of her male alter ego slowly becoming more and more distinct, as he caught up to them.
Cousin JJ, I don't know what this is all about, but if y'all come back, we can talk this over.
Sure, sugar cube. Can't do that.
What was that?
Pinkie cupped her hooves and called back.
She said, sure he sugar cube.
Why not?
Not at the liberated soul, cousin.
What?
She said,
I can't rightly say I like that answer, cousin. I've got a few questions for you myself.
They have to help her at another time.
What?
She said, they'll have to start the time.
Think of her. Help.
Well, if that's how y'all gonna be, then you give me no choice, partner.
The sudden addition of a lisp in her double's voice made alarm bells go off in her head. Instantly, Applejack felt like a sitting duck. Her fears do not go unfounded, as a lasso flew out into the air, casting a thin shadow on the fleeing fillies. As it descended threateningly above her head, the farmer suddenly bolted off to the side, narrowly avoiding the closing noose. She swore she felt a seam or 2 rip in the dress's skirt. Pinkie whooped as she was jolted off alongside, body bouncing through the air like a windsock. A few lengths back, the orange stallion's eyes widened as his attempt at capture was evaded. He never missed a shot. Then again, he never tried to lasso an escaping pony before. Especially not a pony who had managed to surprise him twice in 1 week. She rather reminded him of...
Well, myself, actually.
Still, he remained hot on her trail. They had continued running in a fairly straight direction, off towards the Everfree Forest. If she could catch them before they reached there, he'd be a right happy colt, and he was sure that he'd catch them eventually. He reeled the rope in and started another lasso a-spinning. The galloping mare moved in a zigzag pattern as she continued covering ground.
I'm getting close to the hedge, but I need to shake my cousin off our tails first before we head over for real. He's a big boy. I know that Big Mac's more stamina than me and Pinkie Pie. If my other self's more similar to Big Mac than me, will he be able to outrun me?
Her ear cocked as she heard the rope whistle again. Pinkie was now talking with a piece of mane in her mouth. AJ looked back in time to see a low-flying halo spinning towards her, aimed at her legs.
He's trying to hog-tie me.
The lasso actually managed to hook itself around her right hind leg, but before it could draw tight, she leapt into the air. The noose popped loose as it slipped off in mid-flight. The farm colt in the back almost tripped at this. That should have gotten her easily.
Cousin JJ sure seems to know her lassos.
He pulled the rope in for another toss. The blonde mare looked around the field they were running through for anything, anything at all, any obstacle that might help. All that she saw were trees in the distance. Wait, there was one tree that was closer than that. And as it drew closer still, she recognized its breed and began angling herself towards it. They were upon it in no time, and it was only here that Applejack paused in her running. At least long enough to give the tree a good old-fashioned Apple family tree buck. She then sent off flying again. Pinkie's momentary rest on the ground quickly interrupted. Male Applejack closed in on the tree and arrived just in time for the large plant to finish its shivering, pelting the pony with dozens upon dozens of bumpy, bright green Bordark fruits. Quite literally, horse apples. He yiped and stumbled, doing his best to avoid the falling crop. Here and there, a Bodark broke upon his flank or his snout, the heavy fruit giving him thumps, but thankfully nothing that would leave more than a bruise. For a second, he almost lost his hat. Then he set off again, the rain of horse apples having done its job and slowed him down. He could still see the escaping ponies, though, and worked his legs even harder as he tried to close in.
She sure bucks like an apple. I've got no doubt now. She is family. So why in tarnation is she so scared of Dusk?
He didn't whip the lasso back out as he drew closer. Instead, he tried to come within conversation distance once again, his voice ragged from heavy breathing.
Cousin, come on back now, and let's stop this foolishness. Dusk won't hurt you none, I promise. Why can't we just talk this over like normal ponies?
'Cause there ain't no ponies.
Applejack's natural honesty slipped out around her friend's tail fur.
What was that? For Pete's sake, Miss Pie, you don't need to talk like a mule with that toothache now, you hear?
The colt was seeing more and more of Barry inside the bubblegum pony, every time she opened her mouth. And a little of that good-natured irritation he usually reserved for him was slipping out as a result. The filly spat out the piece of hair that had been in her mouth, and drawled in a surprisingly good approximation of her friend's voice.
She said, 'cause we take normal ponies.
Applejack rolled her eyes. Here she was, trying to shake off her stallion self, and Pinkie was acting as a go-between. Her legs were beginning to burn, and she was pretty certain that the sundress she had on was looking like it'd just gone through a war.
Something's gotta give. I could maybe run faster if I didn't have this frou-frou thing on, but ain't gonna give me time to slip it off. If only I could find a good way to...
She saw a dark line come into view across the field. Memories began to pop up. She knew where she was. This was one of Barley Oat's fields, and the information she was coming across was in fact a 3-yard deep, dried-up creek bed. She remembered playing around in it as a filly, and taking naps under the many trees that grew along its edge. And just like that, she then had a plan. She turned her head to look back at her opposite gender, her eyes narrowed and a smile on her lips.
You feeling lucky, cousin?
What'd she say?
She said...
The pink filly looked back at her friend, before turning her head back around and giving the stallion a matching grin.
Y'all feeling lucky, cousin?
She then yiped as she was yanked forward, her body rippling like a flag in the breeze as the farm filly put on an extra burst of speed, galloping towards one of the trees lining the creek. Jack gaped for a second, before increasing his velocity to match. As they drew closer, AJ mumbled through her lips. With her mouth full of tail, the apple pony wasn't really able to retrieve her own rope, so she had to make do with what she had. The party horse barely had time to squeal as she suddenly found herself being tossed around in circles, apparently being used for a substitute lasso. As they finally arrived at the tree, right before it looked like they were about to plummet into the creek bed, Applejack tossed her pink friend into the air. For her part, Pinkie held up remarkably well as she caught a branch in her mouth, her body stretching like taffy as the orange equine pushed off and propelled herself into the air. As she hit the apex of her hang time, she gave another yank to her lasso, causing the pony to dislodge herself. The pair landed on the other side of the creek with nary a scratch. And as AJ looked back, she found herself grinning as her alter ego tossed the lasso at the same branch, apparently intent on beating his cousin at her own game.
Sorry, Sugar Cube. Despite everything about the two of us that still like, you and me still have differences. You're a boy, and so you've got that endurance that I know a stallion has. But I'm a mare, and I've got something you'll never have, and that's a center of balance.
Applejack watched as her doppelganger pushed off into the air. However, his leg strength, coupled with his top-heavy musculature, worked against him as he took off much faster than intended, the rope looping him up and around the tree branch and giving him a face-to-face meeting with Mr. Trunk, landing with a hefty wham on the opposite side. With that, the farmer pony let out a whoop of country cheer, Pinkie yelling alongside her, as they galloped off into the bushes, unseen and unhindered. There was a moment or so of silence, or at least he would have liked for a moment or so of silence. The ringing in his ears would just not let up. Applejack stumbled as he peeled himself off the tree's bark. Green eyes crossed. He was aware that somewhere in there his hat had fallen off. Right now, at this moment, his vision was too impaired to go looking for it. He was pretty content to just sit there on his haunches, leaning back, waiting for the world to come back into focus again. There was a ragged breathing as another stallion clumsily ran up to join him. Dusk wasn't built for this kind of marathon running, and it showed as he came into view, bags under his eyes. His mane and tail limp with sweat. Even his horns seemed to droop. Spines was in no better condition, her eyes having shrunk to pupils, claws digging deep into the lavender pony's hide.
What? What? Where did they go, AJ?
The farmer barely registered his presence, doing an impressive imitation of Derpy Doo, one eye focused on him, while the other seemed to inspect a random bird in the sky.
What do you say?
I said, where did they go?
The student raised his voice, already suspecting the worst.
How does hay flow? I don't know, I always thought it stood still myself.
No, the fillies, AJ. The fillies got away, didn't they?
The flies got to pay, you say? They're mighty annoying, I agree, but...
Not this again. We were so close, Applejack. So close. I actually saw them this time.
Oh, and Dusk, sorry about letting Cousin JJ and her friend get away. I still don't know what this is all about, though.
What happened anyway?
He looked back at the Applebucker, and seemed to notice for the first time his friend's condition, a look of concern growing over his face.
She didn't happen to buck you, did she?
Huh?
The orange colt blinked before finally focusing both eyes on him.
Oh, nah, she just went and pulled a fast one on me, so... Oh, by the way, you see my hat?
Dusk sighed before wincing and looking back at Spines.
You can let go now, hon.
I'm kind of afraid to. If I went and put a hole in your hide from hanging on too tight.
She was given a look, and she obediently hopped down. The magician turned back to Applejack and began inspecting him for bruises.
So, Cousin JJ?
That's right. Oh, yeah, that's right. She showed up in town a couple of days ago. I'd never seen her before, but she said she was part of the family, just had the farthest farm, and could never make it to the reunion. She's an apple, though, through and through.
His eyes unfocused a bit as he recalled the chase.
I tried to lasso her, but she avoided every one, and then she went and bucked a horse apple tree on me.
A hoof rubbed at one of his shoulders.
Darn near tripped me up there, but I stayed on her tail right up to about here, actually.
The unicorn raised an eyebrow as he looked behind him at the creek bed.
Up to here? She made it across and you didn't?
It was super amazing!
A new voice dropped in from above.
Applejack was all like, vroom! And the cousin JJ was all like, vroom! And they ran for the tree, and the JJ used Pinkie as a rope and swung her way across. And the Applejack tried too, but he was too big, and he went whoop! And he landed back up against the tree, which looked like fun, except for the landing on your face part.
All three looked up to see Bubbleberry hanging down from the sycamore's branches. They didn't ask how he'd gotten up there, as the pink pony fell from the height, accompanied by a few leaves. It was Berry being Berry. That was all they needed to know.
Yeah, what he said.
Applejack flushed slightly under his yoke, at his less than flattering defeat. Having been outsmarted by a filly, family or not, still stung something fierce.
I see. At any rate, Applejack, you did notice the resemblances, right?
Resemblances?
You know, your cousin is an orange earth pony with a blonde mane, just like you, right?
True, but the same can be said of my cousin Apple Cobbler.
She's also got green eyes and freckles, like you. Remember?
In case y'all forgot, partner, Red Gal's got 'em too, and I highly doubt you'd forgotten that. I've seen the looks you've thrown at my big sister.
Not the point. And she's got the same kind of accent that you've got, doesn't she?
Haystack, I fail to see your point. In case you haven't noticed, all our apples speak the same, and it ain't no accent.
Ugh, never mind.
Apparently, Applejack would be a hard sell. He quickly pointed a hoof at Barry.
What about him? You saw his friend, right? Didn't you find it a bit suspicious that they were so similar to each other?
At this, the farmer brought a hoof up to his chin.
Now that y'all mention it, it did seem a might be strange. I mean, I understand that any pony who saw two bears bounce around the street together would have the right to go freaking like a striped ape. One's a bit much already. What in the world would we have done with two of them?
And you, Barry!
Now the lavender pony turned his head to face his perky pony pal.
Where did you find your companion in the first place?
Barry leapt to his hooves as he happily answered.
Oh, she hopped out of a bush!
Stares all around.
What now?
Well, you see, it went kind of like this. I was on my way to Zircon's hut to see if he had any kind of good berries that I could use in my next batch of cupcakes. But while I was on my way there, I had a new kind of berry sense combo that I'd never had before. My hind legs spun in place, then my forelegs, then my whole body spun around me like a tornado. And when it stopped, I saw this bush. And I figured that since my berry sense never usually goes off without some pony around, there must be some pony around hiding. So I got up into the bush and I say, "Hello? Is there some pony in there? But if there isn't, I totally understand." And then I talked about throwing a party for them in Ponyville, and then boing! She hopped out. She told me her name was Pinkie Pie, and that she'd love to help me hold the party. And so we went back into town, and we went to Sugar Cube Corner, and we made plans on making a brand new kind of party the likes that Ponyville never seen. And then we went to the Jester Joke Shop, and every pony kept staring at us. And then...
Barry,
Applejack stuffed another apple into the stallion's mouth.
I think we get the picture.
Dusk, however, pressed in.
You said she jumped out of a bush.
Barry took a bite of his apple and munched.
Yep.
On your way to Zircon's.
Yes, sirree, Bob.
On the edge of the Everfree Forest?
Uh-huh. Ran to a pink party pony who looked just like me, talks just like me, and loves the party just like me, and even has the same cutie mark as me.
Where? Tell me, Barry, where's the bush?
Dusk.
The farmer gaped before taking the dark purple tail in his mouth and tugging him away from the fluffy maned one.
I don't think I'm following here. You're not saying that Miss Pie is actually dangerous, are you?
It's not just her.
He turned to face the orange one again, eyes wide and expression panicked.
Over the past few days, strange ponies, strange fillies have been showing up all over Ponyville. Butterscotch, you heard about his girlfriend? Blitz got kicked in the face by one of them, who then escaped with a sonic rainboom. Elusive has a mare who looks just like him visit the shop, and they fall head over heels with each other. Your cousin shows up and outmaneuvers you, the king of all things country, and now there are 2 berry bubbles.
While Applejack was left trying to imagine what a female rainbow blitz would look like, Dusk turned back towards his perky pink companion.
And I've been trying, with no luck so far, to find where it is they've been hiding. They must have some kind of plan for us. They wouldn't have caused so much chaos if they hadn't. Tell me, Barry, where did you find the bush? Can you take me to it? If you can, we can finally confront them and put an end to this whole thing.
Barry Bubble took in the pleading face of his friend with his blue eyes, before he scrunched his face up, trying to think. He dramatically hummed, cupping a chin with his hoof, stroking his lip. Spines half suspected a cheesy curly mustache to appear at any second now. After a full minute of thought, the unicorn stallion leaned in.
Well, do you remember, Barry?
A beat passed, before the party pony uncrossed his hooves and shrugged with an apologetic face.
Nope. Sorry, Dusk, but all those bushes look alike, you know. They could be anywhere along the Everfree Forest. Sorry I couldn't be more of help. Bye!
And with that, Barry got to all 4 hooves and skipped away back in the direction of Ponyville, singing as he went. Dusk was left with a wide gaping look on his face. With no small amount of trepidation, AJ sidled up to him.
Dusk? You gonna be alright there, Haystack?
But He was, and she, they, and,
The farmer and dragoness both stepped back a fair distance as the unicorn leapt into the air and exploded. His hide suddenly glowing white-hot, as his mane and tail transfigured into erupting columns of fire. His eyes turned ruby red as he momentarily lost all focus of rational thought, visions of destruction and frustration stampeding through his mind. And then, just like that, it was over. The student pony collapsed back on the ground, hair and hide singed. In his eyes now was a picture of defeat. The two approached carefully, making sure he didn't have any fireworks left in him. After a few seconds, he looked up at them. They looked back. He let out a sigh.
I'm sorry, guys. I just don't know anymore. The evidence is all there, but it's like how I was trying to research berry scents a while back. I just can't seem to get anywhere. For every one trot forward, it's 3 trots back.
Now, don't go beating yourself up about it, Haystack. Maybe you're right. And then again, maybe not. I mean, the whole story. Well, I'm just not sure. Some of it makes sense after seeing Barry and Miss Pie. The rest, well...
The lavender colt shook his head as he struggled to his feet.
Don't worry about it, AJ. I'm not going to. I'm done chasing today. Come on, Spines.
He turned away, head hung low in a defeated manner as he began to walk away.
We're going home.
The dragoness made as if she wanted to say something, but closed her mouth and looked back at the draft horse. He gave her a nod and motioned towards the student. With a return nod, the assistant ran to catch up to her departing friend. The orange stallion gave a sigh as he glanced about. The sun had begun its evening descent, and the light was starting to wane. A glance upwards revealed to him that his hat was hanging off one of the sycamore tree's branches. A quick trot over to the base, and he gave the tree a good hefty buck, enough so to return the favor by leaving a hoofprint in its bark. He smiled in satisfaction as his hat floated down from its lodging. As he placed the hat upon his head, he caught himself glancing across the dried-up creek bed once again.
Cousin JJ.
The words that Dusk had imparted, that his cousin herself had spoke, danced through his head.
Just what are you, Cousin JJ?
We're home.
Every pony's heads perked up as Applejack entered the hedge, mouth still full of pinky tail.
Applejack!
Her eyes instantly honing in on the dress's tattered condition.
What have you been doing? Oh dear, I'm gonna need to completely reseam the entire thing.
The farmer spat out the pink frizz, before fixing the dressmaker with a weary look.
Y'all are welcome to it. I'm awful sorry about it, Fluttershy, but it gets kind of unavoidable when you're running for your life.
Oh, it's no problem. I'm sorry you had to wear it. I know dresses and you don't usually get along.
You had to run.
Dash was instantly up in the blonde mare's face as Twilight helped Pinkie to her feet.
Who from? Are they still out there?
Nah, lost them quite a ways back. They still got no clue where we are.
AJ allowed a look of pride to grace her features.
Taught 'em a lesson, too. A filly's more than capable of taking out a stallion, even if they are a double.
Even if they... Oh no. You met your other self again?
Weren't something we could really avoid, Twi. I mean, he had his heart in the right place at first. He agreed with me that 2 Pinkies were worse than 1.
Oh, come on, JJ. We weren't being that bad. I mean, yeah, sure, we did plan out a super-duper spectacular party for every pony in Ponyville to enjoy, and I think we might have scared Mrs. Mr. Cake, but then we went shopping and bought all the party stuff at the Jester Joke Store, and then me and Barry each got a slushie while Applejack and Applejack talked, and then...
The blue Pegasus took the turn of stuffing an apple into the party pony's mouth.
You bought out the joke store? Jeez Louise, talk about your showstoppers.
Were they really being that bad, Applejack?
Fluttershy had Applejack's hat in her hooves, as she watched Rarity assist the farmer in removing the outfit.
I tell you, I went straight to the corner first. They'd already, left by then, but every pony in there was twitchier than a rabbit in a viper's pit. And when I followed them down Apricot Avenue, thank you, Rarity, there were a ton of ponies standing and staring like they'd seen Nightmare Moon in a tutu.
Rarity blanched as she pulled the dress away from Applejack's form.
Oh my, that must have been quite the scene. Pinkie already stands out in a crowd. With two of them, any pony that passed must have surely noticed them.
And that was when my cousin shows up. We managed to have a friendly chat, actually. But then he offers to hold his party that Pinkie and Barry are planning down at the acres. And while I'm trying to convince him he still needed work to do, Dusk up and sees Pinkie and me, and then goes and tells my other half to catch us.
My hooves itched right before he showed up. I just knew chasing was going to be involved.
Dusk? No, not good. Not good at all.
Twilight had passed panic some time back, and was now livid.
If every pony in Ponyville knows there's two Pinkies now, then it won't take them long to connect the dots. And soon we'll have all of Equestria coming after us.
Twilight?
We've done our best so far, but it's all coming undone around us.
Rarity found herself impressed with the sheer amount of drama the purple pony was exuding.
We've been hiding for days, and every day we keep doing something that brings us closer to them. And on top of that, now they've started coming to us.
She pointed a hoof over to the hutch, glaring daggers at a white rodent who returned them with equal force.
Twilight, listen, about that.
And to top it all off, that new Pinkie sense? What do we call that?
The Whopper.
Sounds good to me.
Fine then, the Whopper. Both she and her other half have the same sense, and it went off when they came into close proximity of each other. All it would take is blind luck for one of them to accompany him along the forest edge and set it off again. Pinkie's a ticking time bomb waiting to go.
Twilight!
That last word was spoken rather forcefully, from a demure set of lungs. All eyes turned to Fluttershy, who momentarily shrunk from the extra attention.
Yes, Fluttershy?
Well, I was wondering. I thought of this after seeing them both do the same Pinkie sense. This may not have much to do with anything, but I just wanted to ask.
She paused before gathering herself to air her question.
Have any of you felt something weird when your other self was nearby?
The words sunk into every pony for a few seconds. Applejack was the first to reply, to every pony's surprise.
You know, now that you mention it, Sugar Cube, I remember having a thought when I first met my other half. It was kind of sort of like a great big hole would open up inside of my stomach. And at first I just chalked it all to being scared. But then, while they were questioning me, and Applebuck asked him to lighten up, he said he had a funny feeling in his stomach, like there was something off about me.
The gears in Twilight's head were churning full force.
He did? If you and him were feeling the same thing at the same time. Dusk, he kept getting drawn back around the hedge for reasons he didn't know. And every time he was near, I had gotten this lump in my throat.
If it helps any at all, when I met Butterscotch for the first time, I felt something. Like a lightness almost. Like I could fly away without even flapping my wings.
That's odd. When I finally saw Blitz in person, I don't know. It felt like being back at the Best Young Flyers competition. There was a rock the size of one of Applejack's 7-layer apple crumbles resting in the pit of my stomach, weighing me down.
My heart positively sung when I laid my eyes upon my prince. Butterflies abounded within my very being, and he told me that he felt much the same the moment we met.
But I bet that thing that Pinkie and Barry did a while ago, that whopper of a Pinkie sense, is what they feel when they get close. Twilight, you think what I'm thinking?
That we appear to all be connected to our doubles in some manner or another? Then, yes, I think we are. Girls, this hedge isn't going to cut it anymore. If we can't get home by tomorrow night, then we're going to have to move. Maybe to another town. I hear Philadelphia is nice this time of year, isn't it? Or, hey, we could head for Manhattan, except this time, to stay.
Twilight.
Rainbow found herself most crushed by the tone in her friend's voice.
You're not sounding very hopeful here.
I'm being a realist. If we're all going to be affected by each other's proximity, then the only other recourse is to distance ourselves. I mean, I have every confidence that we'll get home tomorrow, but still, it doesn't hurt to plan ahead.
Twilight, is is there really a point to us hiding anymore?
The lavender pony bit her lip.
I don't think that's not what I...
The darling once again makes a point. With Ponyville having been repeatedly botched by appearances outside, and with the threat of party doomed rearing its head whenever Pinkie and Barry meet, it seems to me that any hope of future concealment we may wished for is rather moot.
You're saying we should come out of hiding? On purpose?
That seems to be the case they're pleading. Show ourselves. Explain things. Get some help. Maybe see if there's a prince of willing of Celestia and help us get back?
Twilight screwed her eyes shut.
What? No! I can't just give up like that! They're looking for us for a reason! You heard Dusk. They think we're some sort of invasion force. I mean, we've even taken a prisoner. We'll be tied up and tossed in their prison, not to mention banished and then being banished again. We might even...
The farmer had placed her hoof on one of her shoulders, locking her green eyes on the student's face.
I ain't no psychiatrist, but even I know an excuse when I hear one. You're scared. You're more scared than a lot of us were altogether of your cold self. You're the only one of us left now. He's not met their other half yet. And I can see you digging your hooves deeper and deeper. The more and more likely the meeting becomes.
Hey.
Dash spoke up as well, trotting to stand next to her friend.
Dwight, I'm not happy with the idea of having to face that my other self again either. But if it means a guaranteed chance of getting back to our homeworld, then I'm willing to put up with it.
Besides, they're not like evil or anything. They're just ponies, just like us.
The magician sighed, her ears down.
I don't know, girls. I mean, yeah, technically I could, but still,
She trailed off, eyes directed at the floor, at a loss for words. She felt the blush of shame touching her face as she realized how true their words were ringing. She knew they were right, but that still didn't change how she felt. A few seconds of silence passed before Rarity breathed out a sigh.
Now, girls. Twilight, I can see that we're putting undue pressure on you. I do apologize for my part. If you truly wish for us to remain hidden, then I shall remain by your decision.
Applejack kicked at an errant rock before nodding as well.
I still think we should go with their better chance, but if it means that much to you, hun, I'll trust you.
The unicorn looked towards Rainbow, seeking her opinion. She got a shrug.
It's alright. I don't mind waiting some more. Gives me more time to catch up on my napping anyways.
I'm with you, Twilight.
The party pony gave her friend a look that spoke volumes about the trust she had.
I know I've been a silly pony today, but there's no pony else I'd trust when it comes to epic adventure big-timey choices.
At last, Twilight glanced towards Fluttershy, who was in the process of delivering a carrot to Angela. The rabbit made a motion as if to refuse, but a miniature stomach growl signaled her surrender, as she scooped up the veggie and began to munch.
Fluttershy? I'm sorry,
The butter pony looked over at her, and gave her as much a smile as she could muster.
I'm still with you, Twilight. You're my friend, and I could never abandon you. But sometimes you need to be aware that if we're not able to go home, well, there are lines that you have to keep from crossing, besides the ones we've already...
She glanced over to the hutch before directing her gaze to the floor. Dash sighed, foreseeing the moment, before turning tail and flying out of the hedge, reassuming guard duty. As the rest of the girls broke up, accompanying themselves with other tasks, the unicorn remained seated next to her as they watched their captive.
I know, Fluttershy. I'm sorry. I promise I won't let it happen again.
A pink mane bobbed in reply in a nod, though she could tell that those eyes were still turned down.
To be continued. Coming up next on Across an Arrow Chapter 9, Under a Midnight Star.
Dusk didn't move, didn't even budge. The stallion instead raised his head up level as he spoke the final part from memory alone.
The final cause is that for the sake of which a thing exists, or is done, including including both purposeful and instrumental actions.
The mare that was seated behind him opened her mouth, unable to stop the words from spilling out.
The final cause, or telos, is the purpose or end that something is supposed to serve.
A moment of silence descended between the two. Neither pony moved, neither one spoke a word, but the both of them were now keenly aware of the second presence that was in the room. Finally, the lavender stallion asked the air quietly,
What is your final cause? What do you want?
She almost choked right there. The lump that was in her throat felt so large and swollen. It was like she would gag on it, should a misplaced word pass through her lips.
What do I say? How do I even begin? How would you want to be told? All we want